Hey everybody, this is Lindsay and I'm here today to show you how you can take one card design and switch it up and use it for two occasions. So I went ahead and pulled out my MISTI for my stamping today just because I'm doing two cards and I want them to be identical. This just helped me keep the stamp in the exact same place on both cards. So I'm using the Fancy Cake stamp set from Two Paper Divas. This is brand new and it is on the larger side, so this MISTI also helps me get a very nice impression on this cardstock also. I'm prepping my paper with my embossing bag, and then I'm just going to ink this stamp up with some Versamark ink, and again it's on the larger side, so make sure you do get really good coverage with your ink just to help with your embossing later on. Less to fix if you do it right now. So I ink that up, and then I'm just going to flip my lid over and press that right down on my cardstock, and then I'll pop it out of there. And I'm using a sentiment from the Banners No. 3 stamp set, also from Two Paper Divas, and I've curved this on my acrylic block so it fits the curve of the bottom layer of the cake. And this sentiment reads Mr. and Mrs. This is going to be a wedding card. And I went ahead and stamped that down again in Versamark ink. I am going to be using the Ranger's Fine Detail powder, and this is in the shade of gold. You do want to use a fine detail if at all possible, just because the lines are so incredibly detailed on this stamp. When you have a detail embossing powder, the granules in it are very much smaller, so it sticks better to the fine lines of these detail oriented stamps. Now once I've knocked off all the excess powder, I'm going to go ahead and just use my heat gun and heat set that. And that finishes that panel for now. So on my next panel, and this is going to be a birthday card, I'm going to do the exact same setup, and I'm just going to stamp this stamp down. Instead of Versamark, I'm going to use VersaFine and Onyx Black, just because I do want this to be a black heat embossed image, and I'm not really a fan of black embossing powder. I just find it really messy. So I do just stamp this in this VersaFine black ink, and it's a pigment ink, so then I can come back in and I can heat emboss this with clear embossing powder. So I went ahead and stamped that Celebrate stamp, and again it's curved on the block, and it is also from the same stamp set of the Banners No. 3. So I just put that Ranger Super Fine Detail in clear, tapped off the excess, and then heat set that panel. So for my watercoloring on both of these panels, I wanted to give just a little bit of shimmer to these, so I'm using Perfect Pearls in gold. Now I've already got this spray bottle filled up with some water, and I'm just going to use this Perfect Pearls powder, and I'm going to tear off just a piece of scrap paper to use as a little like funnel to get this in the spray bottle. And I'll just take a few scoops of this powder, and it is a very pigmented powder that has a little bit of shine to it, and I'm just going to add this to some water that I have in the spray bottle. And then I'll just go ahead and screw that cap back on, or that nozzle back on, and give it a good shake. And then I've got some gold water mist, I guess you could say, ready to go, that will give a nice shine to all the watercolor I do. So for my wedding card, I wanted to keep the colors pretty muted, so I'm just going to use antique linen to color in this whole cake. And even though I'm only using one color of distress ink here, you can really get a lot of variation with your watercolor just by adding a bit more water to some parts, or even just layering up your colors and making them a bit darker. Now on my birthday cake, I'm using antique linen also, but I did bring in some seedless preserves and picked raspberry distress inks just to bring a little bit more life to this birthday card. Now on these cards, you can use however many colors you want. I just wanted to keep my supply list to kind of a minimum, so I used just very few colors on these. And I also went ahead, and when I wet them, I didn't wet them with plain water. I did use the gold water just to give them a little bit of shine as well. And here I will just go ahead and give you a nice close-up of this card, and you can see just that little bit of shine that the gold water really gives to that, and gives these just a little bit more life with just a few different colors. So I wanted to go ahead and give a nice little halo of blue around each of my cakes. So I'm using some Evergreen Bow Distress ink and a very light hand to do that. And then I came in with some Vintage Photo Distress ink and some more of that gold water, and I'm just giving a splattering effect. I went heavier on the birthday card, as I'm doing with most of my colors, and then I just let that sit for a few seconds and dabbed it up. And I didn't record the process, but I also used some of that perfect pearl powder, the gold, and just a teeny tiny bit of water, so it was very concentrated gold. And I did some flicks off of the acrylic block onto the paper, both papers, with that while the mask was still on also. And that just gave a really nice gold splatter. So if you ever want gold splatter on your cards, that's a really great way to do it. So I wanted to bring just a little bit more focus to that cake. So I'm just going to take a circle die and I'm going to cut this entire main image out. And there you can see that I just ran that through my die cutting machine and it just pops out really nicely. So to pop up my circles that I die cut, I'm going to go ahead and cut some fun foam. I'm using the smaller die than what I used for the cakes to cut those out with. It's just the next step smaller from a nesting circle die set, and I'm just cutting this out with my die cut machine and a piece of fun foam. Just run it through once and then you'll kind of have to push it and tear it a little bit, but it comes out nice and cleanly. So to put these cards together, I'm using an A2 white top folding card base for each of them. My second layer on the panel is gold on one, maroon on the other. I'm using double-sided adhesive to put those down, and they're 1/8 of an inch smaller than an A2 size card base. Then I'm putting down that layer that I created for the panel, and then I'm popping up this circle on both of these with some fun foam and double-sided adhesive, and then I'll just make sure they're oriented right and put those down. Now to add just a little bit more shine and interest, I'm just going to layer up some sequins. I'm using two sets. They're both from Simon Says Stamp. One is the gold and silver mix, the other is the moonshine mix, and I'm just layering up 2 or 3 sequins on both of these cards, and I'm using my quick sticks tool and also some tacky glue just to put these down on the cards and kind of scatter them around. And that finishes off both cards for today. So same exact design, but just for 2 separate occasions. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and as always, I will leave you with these close-ups and just a few pictures. For more information and the supply list, you can head to my blog, craftingwhilecaffeinated.wordpress.com. The link is in the description box below, as well as that little eye in the right-hand corner will get you there too. Thanks so much for watching and happy crafting!